Pete, let's talk about Rangers. James Tavernier has been linked with the move to Turkey. He won't go now, but potentially someone they would let go in January or too important to the team.
Yeah, it's a difficult decision, this one, for Rangers. I can see it from both sides, really. And this one, obviously, Tavernier's under contract until 2026, so he's still got a few years left in his contract. But if you look at the player's side, he turns 33 next month, so he could have one big more move left in him if he wants to, and one final payday, because he's not getting any younger. And again, turning 33 in October and just having like 18 months left in his contract in January, when the window reopens, maybe Rangers will be feeling this is their last chance to cash in on James Tavernier as well, who's been a great servant to the club. He's the amount of goals and assists that he's scored and provided for Rangers over the years has been superb. His record is right up there as a goal scoring fullback. But I think right now, if Rangers were to sell him, he's not going to be an easy player to replace in that squad. I know he's come in for a bit of flack for his defending, especially in the recent Old Firm derby, but I think Rangers are definitely a better team when James Tavernier is playing. So I don't think they'll be rushing him out the door right now as well. I don't think there'll be any late moves for him before the Turkish window closes. But again, if there is still interest there in January, Rangers will have a decision to make, because, as I said, he will have 18 months left in his contract, and he'll also be another year older. So they might think we might need to cash in on him rather than risk letting him run down his contract, because obviously Rangers did that in the summer and they saw a number of key players leave on free transfers, and that really hurt them in the transfer market, because we saw that Philippe Clement didn't have a lot of money to spend in the summer transfer window, and Rangers found themselves lagging behind Celtic, not just on the pitch but also financially. So lots of questions for Rangers to answer on and off the pitch in these next couple of transfer windows.
No doubt. And Paul, speaking of Philippe Clement, sack news is going around potentially that it could be over for him and Rangers. Derek McInnes and a return of Steven Gerrard are the two biggest links for the managerial job. Could you see either of those working out for Rangers or potentially fitting in soon?
Listen, they always say never go back, don't they? And with Steven, I think the legacy that he left, I think he did a great job there. I really do. I think there's an opportunity. There would be an opportunity for him there to go back. But I think it'd be a very different Rangers to the one that he took over. I think the squad's obviously very different under Clement. Listen, it's regardless of how you get on against everybody else, it's how far you fall behind the boys across the city, and that's what they seemingly have done at the moment. You know, missing out on the Champions League, the performances against Celtic. They got beat 3-0, but they were still in the game. Other Old Firm derbies, his record in Old Firms of late. Brendan Rodgers' record in Old Firm derbies is great. And I think that's where you are going to get, that's where you're going to get judged. And at the moment, their forward players are not as good as Celtic's forward players. And I think that's where they're falling behind. You look at what they've spent in the last year. You compare what they've spent to what Celtic have spent. You compare the two bank balances, what they've got at the moment. The gap is widening at the moment, and that's worrying for Rangers fans. I think with Clement, when he first came in, he took him on that run of unbeaten, or the run of wins, didn't he? And I thought he did a really, really good job. I think to an extent his hands have been tied with the players that he's lost off the field. But I think it's the style of play. And I just think there's a little bit of disjointment at the moment between the club and the supporters there, because playing at Hampden hasn't really worked out for them. Thankfully they're back at Ibrox, and all their Europa League games will be played at Ibrox, which is huge for the supporters. And I think it's a little bit early to talk about his job, but I think the next Old Firm is key, and also how they get on in Europe is going to be key. I think a good European run and a turn in form against the boys across the city would save him his job. But I think that's where he's got to do, because at the moment there's no doubt. Listen, when you're the manager of Rangers, Glasgow Rangers, you're always under pressure. It's a massive football club. It's a club that demands success, and yeah, they got close. They were close to. Listen, I think they were a couple of games away from winning the league last season. I really do. I thought they were that close. But from where they were last season to where they are now, that's been a big drop off for me. And I think that's due to a lot of the players that they've lost, the lack of spending that they've got, the lack of funds that they've got, and that will eventually fall at the manager's door. So a good run in Europe and a turn of results against Celtic, I do think he needs. I think it's premature talking about his job, but I think he's under a lot more pressure than he was at the end of last season.